All right. Hi, friends. I thought I was live before and I wasn't. So now I am. And we're gonna roll with it. Let me see if it will let me see any comments in case you lovely people have questions. Here we go. Okay, I will just pull it up in here. All right. I have questions pulled up, and yeah, turn that on. Hang on, let me mute myself. There we go. We're good. All right. Hi, friends. I am Kara McCann. I am the website designer, copywriter, email campaign manager, etc. at Create Captivate. And I'm here today to talk to you about repurposing your podcast content. For anyone who noticed in the title that this said episode 1, we have 2 episodes on this month. And the other one will be covered by our content creator, Kara Alexander. And she's going to cover that one, I believe next week. I'm going to say next week. I'm fairly confident. I'm like 75% sure it's next week, I think. But if it's not, it's the week after that. So soon. But we want to talk about all the different ways that you can use your podcast content. So podcasting obviously is like this hugely popular thing now. It seems like every time you turn around, you're learning about somebody new who is doing a podcast. And that's really exciting. But what's even more exciting is that podcasts can be used in so many different ways. Rarely will you come across a type of marketing that can only be used for a singular purpose. You know, you can use and reuse and repurpose content in so many different ways. So, podcasting is fairly straightforward. As far as my realm goes, I do emails and writing and websites, right? So as far as my world goes, I actually think a podcast very similar to a blog, and I'll explain why. So your podcasts are coming out at regular intervals, whether it's one a day or one a week or twice a month or whatever. Typically, you're on some kind of at least fairly predictable schedule. So that's also how I think about blog posting. You're posting regularly to keep your audience engaged, to keep your rhythm predictable. If you have a blog that posts like once and then 2 weeks later and then not again for 3 months, it's going to be really hard to grow a viewership or a readership. So as far as podcasts, when you are attracting the same thing, you want consistency and reliability. So you have this nice program schedule, and that means that you're having regular content available, and that's typically getting pushed somewhere. So when you're podcasting, you're sending that out to whatever, Spotify, Apple Music, or Apple Podcasts, like all the different channels that you can distribute that so people can listen to it. But then, just like a blog post, you can be pushing those podcasts to your website on the regular. I just realized you have this like giant ladder in my background. Which was not the intention, but I was trying to angle so I didn't have a ton of glare on my glasses. So we're just gonna roll with it because I work from home and this is what my home looks like sometimes. So enjoy all my art that I haven't hung up and my giant ladder. Anyways, so you have this content that a lot of the podcast streaming services have either plugins that you can use or have some type of like embed codes or whatever, where either automatically or manually you can be posting those podcasts to your website as you go. So if you have a business website and you're just kind of doing podcasting on the side, you can have a section that's dedicated to your podcast. And this is regardless of what type of website you are. If you are like a service business and you're podcasting about, like, say you're a tech company and your podcast is about the same thing, but your website only talks about your services or your products that you provide, you can still have a section dedicated to your podcast so that people can listen to your expertise in the area as well. And it actually is going to really help to validate your expertise because people can hear you talking about it. So the way that I recommend listing podcasts on your website, no matter what you do, is as blog posts. And the reason for that is because they can be categorized. So when you have a blog post on your website, you can assign any number of categories or tags or whatever. So if you have a category that's just called podcasts, then if somebody's coming to your website, if you have a blog and you're blogging about 100 different things and you have a ton of different categories, you can still pull out those podcast ones and have them list just in their own separate tab on their own, their own little nook of your website. And if you don't have any other blog posts and you're not blogging regularly, then your podcasts are your only ones. So you can just list all of them in that one section. And no matter what, you could just call it podcast. People go to that and then they see automatically any blog post that you've created that has that podcast tag is going to be categorized as a blog post, and it'll populate there. So there are multiple advantages to this. One, you've done one chunk of work already by doing the podcast itself. And probably from that, you've maybe gotten some good little snippets, like maybe you've gotten a really great guest quote, or you had some really inspiring conversation that made you think about something maybe that has to do with your industry. And you can pull little nuggets from that and just kind of set those aside, tuck those away for some kind of use. But as far as the blog post goes, you already have this great thing that people can listen to. Whether your episodes are 20 minutes or 2 hours, you have this section that you can put on your website under that post where people can just click and they can listen on your site. They're not being taken away to another site. They're just listening as they read the rest of your blog post. And then the rest of that content, oh, hey, Casey. The rest of that content can be filled out. So whenever you do a blog, one of the big advantages to blogging is that you have SEO. So SEO, search engine optimization, it's where you're using keywords and different types of practices and principles on your website to make search engines happy. So blogging, and in this case, that's what we're doing, right? We're posting our podcast as a blog, so we're going to talk about it as blogging. You have an opportunity to boost your website's search results. So how we're going to do that is you're going to post that podcast, the embed code, or use your plugin or whatever is part of your podcast streaming service. You have something they can listen to, but then in the title of that, whatever you're titling your podcast, if you can, where it makes sense, make it keyword friendly. So taking those words that are pertinent to your industry, taking those words that you want people searching for and finding you, put those in the titles of your podcasts, right? So that then when you post it on your website and you post the title of the podcast, people are finding your podcast blog and they're going and seeing all that content, and then they'll probably also go and subscribe to your podcast. So it gives you an opportunity to put those quotes that really stood out. You can write out some copy. You don't have to do full transcripts. I know that that's an option, and some podcasters choose to put a full transcript in there. It's not necessary. If you want to do it, that's fine. But you can also just put show notes. So what it was about, what maybe stood out. You can put, also great for networking and building those relationships, is putting more information about your podcast guest. So where are they from? What do they do? How can people find them? How can people support them if they can support them in some way? Maybe you do something that has to do with some kind of philanthropy or nonprofit or whatever, and you want to give people an opportunity to donate to that cause. You can put that information in there. You can link your heart out in that blog post, and it's including everything that you got from that podcast already. So we're taking the content you have and we're fully repurposing it to give you a brand new type of content that is wildly helpful on your website. So you've got a new post on your website, you've got tons of information, you're trying to make it keyword friendly, you're linking to other places, all really powerful stuff. And then you can also take that blog content, so you have this podcast, you have the blog that you created from it, and guess what? Now you can post that on social media. And I'm gonna let Kara Alexander go more into that when she does her whole spiel next week or the week after, if I could ever remember. But she'll talk a lot more about repurposing that for social media. But it's just another place that you can go and spit that out to. And emails. If you're sending out regular newsletters, or if you're not already, maybe this is your opportunity to do so. If you're sending out an email, whether you're just typing it out to a few people or whether you're using email manager like MailChimp or Constant Contact, whatever method you're using to message the masses that subscribe to your newsletter, you can include you can include podcast content in there, right? So, hey, did you hear our latest podcast? You can find us on this, and this channel, or come check out our blog about it so you can see how to support this person, this person, this person. And again, you're not having to reinvent the wheel here, right? We created the blog from content in the podcast. We're creating the newsletter from content in the blog. So we're taking what we already have and we're just putting in different places. So it's a really great way to use your podcast in many, many different ways. And you know, it's one of those things that it's like we want our clients to be able to get the most out of what they're doing, right? Like I don't want you to just have a podcast and then just have it sit there, you know. I want you to do something with it, because podcasting is a lot of work. Like it's not, we have a, you know, our podcast guru Megan, and she has talked a lot about how podcasting isn't necessarily difficult, but it's time consuming. And if you are going to pour your heart and soul and your time and your energy into creating that content, then use it. Use it as much as you possibly can. So those are just a few little things. I'm actually really proud of myself because these are 5-minute-ish FriYAYs, and I don't think I've ever been below like 15 or 20 minutes, and we're at about 10 right now. So hopefully I just didn't talk like wildly fast, because I know that's also an option. So just a little recap. Take the podcast. If you can create a title that's keyword friendly, awesome. Create a blog post category called podcast, manually or automatically embed that podcast into that blog post. Post on a regular basis. Every time you do a podcast, there should be a blog post created about it. Repurpose that content into a newsletter that goes out to your followers. And then we'll talk about ways that you can use it in social media marketing in a week or two. So if you have any questions about that, please feel free to leave them below, or you can always contact us through the website, on social media, however, and I will be happy to get back to you guys. So everyone have a lovely Friday and enjoy your weekend. Bye.